So I'm the eldest in our home of 3 girls. So you can imagine how my mother was very worried that, oh my gosh, this one does not want marriage. What's going to happen to the other one? I think God knew what he had in mind when he instituted marriage. And so because of that, I value it.
Yeah,
I want to take that question now to people who say, so when are you getting married? And be like, you tell me what you have derived, what benefit you have derived that makes you want me to also be there. Mpitjeng lefetwa, if you please. Marriage has crowned my portion. In it is said, I shall not want. It makes me to lie down in greener pastured womanhood. It leads me beside still accepted stereotypes. It preserves my dignity. It guides me in the paths of righteousness for society's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of celibacy and singlehood, I will fear being labeled lefetwa, evil for going against God's design, a lesbian. For no man is with me, nor penis nor pillow talk comfort me. Marriage prepares a table of ultimate achievement before me in the presence of my enemies. It anoints my whole life's purpose with the ring. My existence runs over. Surely, goodness and wholeness shall follow me all my days, only in this institution. And I shall dwell in a man's house forever and ever. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Emma Mabe. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're chatting all things to do with being lefetwa. Bonga, unjani?
I'm good. How are you? Why are you lefetwa? Talking about bonga.
That was our own personality. Given are you joining us for this chat? You're here, you're present. Oddly, the only one that is married is the man who can't be called lefetwa, right? Right? Then it's a team of...
That's actually an interesting one. Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of broader audience and people want a bit of translation with stuff, especially with certain words. So lefetwa in the direct translation would be somebody that has been, something has passed you by. So if you're lefetwa, whether it's a car, whatever, but it's used to say marriage has passed you by in South Africa. So when we talked about lefetwa, that's what we're talking about, a woman who has been missed by the train of marriage.
It's not of marriageable age anymore.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard the rule is 30.
I actually don't know.
Interesting. I don't know.
After after 30, then you are officially lefetwa. I don't know.
Okay.
Somebody else said 35. Apparently, women expire at 35. So there's, all these. I don't know. Basically, that's the term, that's the word, and that's what we're talking about today. Everything to do with being lefetwa. Hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Like, finally, I'm here. Sorry. I've been following.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's beautiful. And thank
Thank
you so much for that poem. So we got, a list of your poems, and then, we had to select what we wanted to discuss with you from that. We've already discussed now hore lefetwa ke eng, and maybe if you could just walk us through the journey that informs you writing this poem. And yeah, let's start there.
It's not so easy to write about personal encounters.
Absolutely.
Because for the longest of time, I was writing from a point of observation. But this time it's like when now the shoe fits you. How do you write about this? And it came from a point of frustration within the church. And so I'm Christian. And growing up in the church, I feel like there are different departments which we are aware of. There's Sunday school, there's youth, there's young adult. And then it's like you skip from young adult there before 25, and then boops umme. There's the mother's group there and all of that. But what happens to the woman who is over 25, not married or does not intend to be married? Where do we place them in the church? And then you have this conflict, like where you'd have the pastor's wife saying it's every girl's dream to be married. And growing up, I was like, according which girls are those? Because I'm not one of those, and it's not like I'm against marriage. But don't impose this thing on women that you ought to be married. Now you're having pastors having crusades where come all you women who want to be married. Really? Now you're paying 5,000 rand to go to a stadium and filling up because when you want marriage. Whereas biblically, there's even scripture which actually says that marriage is not for everyone. Is it God's will for you to be married? And so I was in that past 30 age, believe it or not. And, I'm as young as I look, if you're wondering how old I am. Where they're like, so onyala ning. And it's like, but Who said I do? Why are you not asking me what my purpose is? What do I aspire to do or be for myself? Without thinking that my whole life's purpose is wrapped up in marriage. So yeah, that's where it came from.
And the truth is, it's unavoidable. Especially, I think both men and women have the same pressure, especially if you're in the church. I think men in the church also have pressure to get married. Yes, not so much men in the world, but women, whether you're in the world or you're in marriage or you're in, the church, a woman is almost incomplete, So maybe if you could just walk us through your journey and how you get here.
So for me, it wasn't a matter of... So I believe, as I said, in marriage, it is a beautiful union. But I'm about purpose. And I needed to know a purpose of self outside of this union with someone else. And to be tied to being someone's wife. I remember even in high school where someone is like, one day utloba mamurutu wena. And I was like, why do I have to be seen as someone else? Like so just by that association, I can now have a pastorship to me. Why can't I be the pastor myself? And I was just like, I need a purpose, my own, outside of a union or association with everyone. And I've pursued to live that. Is that let me work out my purpose. And then when I'm good and sharp, I'll be like, sharp. Now let's have somebody helping me. And about this whole thing that a woman must help a man, awesome. But also be the companion for my purpose. Let our purpose and vision for each other complement each other. And then I'd be like, this is the one I want to be with. Until such time where I feel like I'm okay with self, then what am I doing with someone else? It does not speak to me. It does not make sense to me.
And at which point does this start?
Gosh, I have no clue. I can't tell you when.
Actually, could you even maybe give us background, if you don't mind? If you don't like this question, we cut it out. Around your family and how you grew up. Did you grow up with a single mom? Did you grow up with parents?
You see, I like this question, right? Because people, again, it's that label of you're a feminist because you have these views. Yes. Whereas I've grown up with mom and dad. A dad who loves his wife. I've never known what a fight between, my dad has never been physical with my mom. If anything, that man would die for her, right?
So you grew up seeing beautiful love.
I've seeing that love was like, this is what
as a trauma. How are we out of trauma?
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because people will say that. Yeah,
there's
people
so
say
many.
yeah, it's because she's men have disappointed her or men have
absolutely.
No.
And the misconceptions that come with all of these.
And also, I at some point I was shy about this, but I'm not. I've never dated. So I don't have I'm speaking from men have hurt me situation. No, if anything, my best friends are guys. Like my whole circle is majority guys. So I can't even say that, men are trash and whatever because of somebody who did something to me. That's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
But so mom and dad love each other. Mom is the one who, for me, she's like the voice of society. You need to get married, And also there's this thing where the mothers raise you to be someone else's wife. That bothered me. And that was starting from a very young age. And for my sisters, it hit them even younger when they were still early teens. For me, it hit me in my late teens because they were all about school, study, child, get the fine. I got the degrees and awesome. And then they were like, okay, now that school is over, muna o guy. And I'd be like, what do you mean? And I said it was probably early varsity years. Was like, awesome. My 20s, I'm going to live them child-free and I'm going to enjoy my monies. And during this time, because I feel like you are married for longer than, you are single. So why not use these years? But the pressures in those 20s, it's it's so pronounced from inside the home to the church to society, And so it was during that time where it's like, no, find me, know me, stick by what I want to do. And so none of the family members outside of my home, not my aunts, not cousins, would be asking how Not even the males in the family would be like, how, where's a man there? Dad nowadays makes jokes and some, we're moving you from house to house. We pay, there must be a man here to help you pack the furniture, not us, the timers and whatnot. I'm like, well, if you don't want to, then I'll just get a furniture moving company, I don't have to have a man to move my furniture around. But for dad, it's in jest, But for mom, it's a bit of a... yakapa, man. You know, it's a bit like it strikes there. And sometimes I wonder for the elderly woman if it's because they experienced the same pressure or not. Like, why? Why are you imposing this on me so much? Why are you questioning me to a point where it's not funny anymore? Now it's and it used to hurt me, and then I got angry about it because I'm like, hey, you know. Now I'm like, yo, either you accept my life or you don't. I'm not gonna fight this.
And it's interesting that you say this because I was at some hypertension congress recently where they were saying they were speaking of the impact of marriage, hypertension, like people that are men that are married are less likely to have hypertension than single men. And ideally, it's because the wife keeps up with your diet and she gives you like a routine and a schedule and whatever. But there was no difference found in women that are married and unmarried. So the running joke is always like marriage benefits men more than it benefits.
That.
Yeah, and this is it. So it's interesting that the pressure is often from the elderly woman in society.
Yeah.
And it's always like, but we all know the numbers show that you are probably the least one to benefit from this union. So what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as you were talking, I'm like, what is it? You know, for me, there's a part of, I'm about to step onto it, but like, there was a bravery that you failed to have for yourself, to not choose this thing, and to, you know, and now you're like, how dare you be that brave? You know, come, hey, come this side, come feel here so that I can relate to you in a different way, you know. But I'm not saying that's necessarily the case with your mom, because you're saying your mom's in a beautiful marriage and whatever have you. I'm just thinking of women generally, women in society generally. What is it about the elderly woman that wants to pull younger girls into this thing that hasn't served most of them?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just thinking like, where could this come from? You know, it's almost like, I don't know. It's like you being in a gang. Right? Why are you recruiting people when you know one is bad that side? Why are you acting like this is the place to be, you know? I nearly said a gang name and then I realized I'm so scared of them. Yeah.
I think the problem is that sometimes our measurements of what people are benefiting from something, that's the issue. Because you can measure medically, but maybe those things that you can measure are not the things that women benefit from marriage. So, for example, how do you measure a woman's security in a marriage? Right? How do you measure that I feel secure here? So one of the things that are very important for women, right? Obviously, this will differ from one context to the other. Consider where our parents come from, right? I come from a town where during the apartheid era, it was so bad, people were witnessing a death every other day. So you can imagine how any form of security, how much it mattered back then, right? Much like education. Our parents come from a time where they saw education changing so many people's lives.
I love this.
Like you studied and worked. There was no this thing, Guti, I have a degree and there's nothing I can do with it. So there's also that issue. But I think more importantly, the point I want to highlight is the fact that what are you measuring when you're trying to figure out the things that women are benefiting from marriage? And are they actually measurable? Or can those women individually come and tell you, this is what I get from him? That's the only way you can measure it.
I hear
by listening to
you.
their stories.
I hear, you know, I actually hear you. Recently, I was involved in something where I just found myself finding it difficult to say no with money. And being like, no, I can't borrow you money. And there was a friend of mine who said, do you realize right now if you were married, it would be Ish, my husband says no.
It would be so much easier.
And the husband can say, Ish, my wife said no.
That's a good one.
You know, and that's something that we can't measure in the statistics.
Exactly.
In
Exactly.
the small benefits that, hey, I can hide behind this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are certain things. So maybe it isn't that they're roping us into toxicity. They know their benefit and the beauty of that thing. That's, you know, so okay. Yeah.
I want to take that question now to people who say, so when are you getting married? And be like, you tell me what you have derived, what benefit you have derived that makes you want me to also be there.
Yes.
Sure, maybe I'll be there one day, but right now where I am, it's a different thing.
That's a very important conversation, actually. Like, And it's a conversation that's going to take us a while to normalize.
Yes.
The conversation of Uguti, first of all, people make the assumption when you don't want to get married, they make the assumption that you're actually making room for a loose life. Like, it might not be the assumption people make about Emma because they know Emma, right? They've seen Emma in church.
But generally, if you say, oh, I don't want to get married.
Exactly. There's the
like,
assumption
look,
that
uyaganga,
I think especially for men, actually, it's like you don't want to get married because you don't want to be tied. You want to have some wiggle room, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And then for women, it's a completely different, in most cases, it's a completely different story altogether. But it's a very important conversation for us to start having, not only in the church, where there's clear scripture that there are people who are born not wanting to get married. Nothing in them wants it. And you understand, Uti? It also brings about the question of these pastors that are responsible for building the churches and growing them, the ones that are actually doing the teaching and whoever they've delegated to do the teachings, because they do a lot in sort of shaping the way that society thinks, right? Because people go through there and they learn certain values and norms. So then the question becomes, why is that not being brought forth to say, guys, there are people who are born not wanting to get married and we need to be okay with that. And if you give birth to a child, you need to have that conversation with yourself that maybe I gave birth to one of those children. It's not, and here's another one that we also
and
can't.
parents usually, sorry, can I just say,
No
find it as
problem.
an indictment of their legacy. Or how most my legacy is going to end with you.
Exactly.
Johnny,
Exactly.
I need grandkids.
It's bigger than that. And
There's-
I love that.
There's also the fear of parents, and this one, it's a sensitive one, but it's very true. Parents fear that when their kids don't get married, that they're part of the letter gang. Right?
Oh, okay.
LGBTQ.
Oh, okay,
Exactly. There is that fear as well.
I even think more African parents.
I was about to let's say African, because there's also Asian parents as well have a very big fear, and there may be other places, but we understand it within our context and we see it, and it's very real. It's very
To be
real.
honest, yeah, as a man, that's usually, I think as a lady, you can sort of get by as being a single woman because women get chosen. But when you're a man who chooses to be single, there's no way. Hush up. Something is either, something. There's so many things around men that won't get married and stuff like that. So I agree with that. There's this connotation.
Emma asked me why isn't it a thing for me? And it's an interesting question because it's just never been something I aspire to. For me, it feels like if it should happen, it will happen, and when it will happen, it will happen. But I don't expect even all my relationships to end in marriage. It's not the
always say
thing
this.
I think it must end in marriage. And I enjoy relationships. I love being in relationships. And I take them quite seriously. But it's not the marker for a successful relationship or we must get here.
Can I also speak towards, there's something that as you're talking, I'm realizing is also very highlighting. And I know that you also come from a very Christian background, but I definitely think that you're a very liberal Christian.
Yes.
And I think that this is often the church, I won't even just say Christian, religious. This is often the marriage is often the central focus, because in Christian settings, you cannot have companionship and partnership outside of this thing until you go sign, until you go. Do you ever feel bound, Emma, being the more conservative Christian? Do you ever feel bound by these legislative laws or whatever, that what if I do want to experience companionship and partnership outside of this ceremony that I have to go through?
No, I don't feel bound at all. I think it's because it comes back to the thing of what do I want for myself and not what is legislated per se. And ultimately, yes, because I really do, I think God knew what he had in mind when he instituted marriage. And so because of that, I value it. But I just know that if it's not for me, then I'm not going to force things and feel like I need to be bound no. It's knowing my purpose and how I want it lived out. Hopefully, to its fullest. That I know I did it well. And I was just thinking, as you were talking about what your male friend said about the living part, I was actually thinking about that. Is that, but am I living? In all of this weight, am I living? Because it matters to me how I live. And if I'm on this, I'm bound. No, Christianity for me is not about being bound. There's a freedom, there's a life to be lived. And I want it in its fullest.
Sure, I love it when people talk like this. There was another lady who was just expressing so passionately around wearing a hijab. And she's like, I am not oppressed. It's like, if anything, I wear it out of strength. I'm oppressed by the people that want me to take it off.
Sure.
So if anything, I'm empowered
that's
by wearing it.
powerful.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel powerful for wearing it. That I'm going
Yeah.
against this thing of you guys constantly want me to take this thing off. And you keep masking it under, you'll be free if you take it off. I'm saying I want to wear it. I'm free.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a common assumption, and I've seen it quite a lot. There's so many people who assume that when a person is of a particular belief system or religion, those things, particularly for women, those things are oppressing those women. And it's much like the conversation we were having earlier, where there's qualitative data, then there's quantitative data. Qualitative data, it's from you sitting with individuals and hearing their side. And often people don't have the time to do qualitative data because it's per individual. Whereas quantitative data, you just go with the numbers, right? Where you just know this many, for example, in most churches, you find that there's probably less than 30% of the church is men. The rest, it's women. And then you'll have a male. So those are numbers that we can't deny. But the part of are women actually being oppressed by the values that Christianity encourages? That's qualitative research. And that requires you to sit with women, much like the hijab thing, which is so powerful. Like, it's so powerful. It's so easy to assume that the women within those contexts find it oppressive. I would actually assume, correct me if I'm wrong, Emma, that you probably find it more oppressive, which is, I suppose, you actually started with it, the comments that people make about you not being married, than the fact that Christianity has the concept of marriage.
Absolutely that.
Yeah.
It was absolutely that. And I think another thing that we need to actually allow is for a woman to change her mind. If at one point a woman decided that I don't want children, and then somewhere along the way she has children, she did not have to announce to you that she wants it. However, she has decided in her life that this is where she wants to be now and be a mother. Let her be. You know, if you now said that when I was at 20 and I'm 30 and I'm 40, I don't want it. Yeah, maybe I do, maybe I don't. Yes, I definitely do. Allow. And we don't make room for that, where women can actually change their minds and be like, I'm at a different phase of my life. I've got a different decision to take and how I want to do it.
But do you feel any responsibility to be the person who makes it possible for young girls like yourself that are coming after you to be allowed to exist and to be approached with, for the question for them, you know, once they reach where you're at, for the question for them to rather be, do you want to get married? Then why aren't you married?
It's a very good question. And I've been asked that before. Where some girls like, I see how you're living your life. Advise me, because this is where I am situation. I don't call myself an activist. I don't call myself a feminist. And it started from the time that, so I'm the eldest in our home of 3 girls. So you can imagine how my mother was very worried that, oh my gosh, this one does not want marriage. What's going to happen to the other ones? You know, and I remember by the time that I was in varsity, I sat down with my sisters and I'm like, listen, I've chosen my life like this. Do not go to the same university as I did, only because your older sister wants you to, only because your older sister did. I respect our parents, but you need to live your own life. And I've told them that all the time. Yes, there's this pressure upon the firstborn that you lead the way for everybody else. I got that thing off my shoulders a long time ago. And I wasn't a naughty child at all, right? If anything, I'm the goody two shoes. But it was a matter of saying that you do your life your way. You know what you're called for. You know what you want to do. Live it your way. But remember that you're answerable to God at the end of the day. So it's not like I'm trying to be the role model for the younger girls in living my life this way. Is that I decided that this is how I want it to be. If it speaks to someone else, awesome. And I will give you answers if you ask me for it. If you decide another way, it's your way. But know that there are consequences for everything that you do. And so I remember even in my advising this other girl that, listen, this is how, my answer to her was, this is how I have lived my life. It's because of 1, 2, 3. Because, and I like that qualitative data thing where we talk about, I see what you're doing, but what informs the decisions and actions of your life. And so I told her, because of these circumstances, I've chosen this way of life. Use it, lose it, it's totally up to you. And so I'm not like I say, have the banner for follow me. I will take what I take from the people, that then forms the person that I am. But otherwise, if it doesn't work for you, hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to impose.
Something, how I knew I want to get married? Every time I would cook, when I stayed by myself, there were just times where I cooked like a meal, guys. Yeah, there was a part of me that longed for someone to be there to have that experience with me. Yeah, literally, I used to have those a lot. And I remember when I was very young, I had finished matric and I had taken a gap year. I remember having a conversation with God about the fact that I want someone to love. It was a yearning within myself, right? So for me, that's how I knew companionship is a very important thing for me. I see it in the way I pursue friendships. I see it in the way, even the people around me. I enjoy that company. I will host people. Obviously this is a bit different from the conversation of marriage, but even in the way I host, I just enjoy that company. I enjoy laughing with my partner. It's guys, one of the reasons I'll probably never stop enjoying a glass of wine is just it's the relationship building that happens between the two of us around that glass of wine. It's just incredible, right? So that's how I knew. So I'm curious as to whether I actually know a lady. There's a friend of mine who has a sister who lives by herself. She's well off. She drives a Merc. She owns property. She travels by herself. She'll literally go to China alone, and she's okay. She's okay with that. I'm interested in whether you feel like you have that kind of yearning. Are there ever moments where you're like, if only?
Yeah, there's that time of the month where it happens.
Okay.
And then afterwards,
that's very interesting.
It's like 2 seconds
that's
and then I'm like, no, back to myself.
That's very interesting. And then
The hormones are a scam.
Oh, can we have this conversation?
You are saying something very important because that time of the month will have you dizzy.
Very dizzy. And I remember going to my married friends. This one girl, I'm like, I don't know if I must pray this feeling away during, because the hormones are wrecking me right now. And when that thing is there, it's there. And then when it's gone, it's like, how? But this fleeting thing, it's, you know what I mean? And the things that I really should surround myself with more women, any takers? Because I'm like, I really wonder if it's a me thing or if other women go through the same thing, where I'm like, this time I'm yearning it. And then there's a time where I'm like, I don't desire it. Is it because I'm in my late 20s and now, things are kicking in now? What's going to happen? And I keep on wondering what's going to happen when I'm 40. And I don't want to sit in a setting where it's the single people at church and then all they're trying to do is just hook us up. I'm like, I'm not here. It's not a dating committee. Like, hook me up with someone. I was going to rant on that and vent, but no. But like, can we have like a sit down with other women here in the church and be like, yo, girls, your hormones are going to do this number on you. You don't have to feel like you are sinning. You don't have to feel like you have to fast and pray this thing away. I just wish that we could have those conversations. But yeah, it does happen. Where I think about it. And
that's very
and then
interesting.
It's like abort mission kind of thing.
No, I think it also speaks to just how genuine you're being. And I say that in the sense of it's basically I'm hearing the references you guys are making to people they basically want you to be like a switch, on or off. Are you feminist or are you not? Are you on our team or are you not? You know, the fact
You can't be in gray here in this life.
you can't be gray. You
doesn't
can't
allow
be
you to.
gray.
The on and off, and sometimes I feel like it, sometimes I don't. It's just not an answer that's allowed.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it's just not
And
an
it's
answer
so,
allowed.
honestly speaking, I find it so deep. And I do hope and wish that we're able to build a world where someone is able to say, listen, I do have the desires sometimes, but when I'm in my right mind, I know Emma. Like, it's not to say Emma's anti-man or this. I just know Emma. Right now, Emma's not there. Also, the thing of phases can make you feel like you're not an authentic person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Inconsistent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Give it.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
as a married person, have you ever been like, I wish I got married later? I wish I was, because I know you've been in a relationship ever since I've known you.
Yes.
You've been with the same person.
Same here.
Do you
Yeah.
ever just like, hey, man, I did it too early. Do you ever go through in the gray? You start moving closer towards the white.
If there's one thing I always look forward to, like every day when I'm at work, it's going home to my wife. Like, I genuinely enjoy being home. You know what's the one thing that sometimes I look at and I'm like, why, Mara, did I do this? Hey, being a parent, guys. Being a parent will do a number on
Yeah.
me.
And these are truths people don't share.
Yeah.
Like, I love my daughter. I love my daughter to
Yes.
bits.
Yes.
You know, I even hate that we have to preface our conversation with that.
Yes.
When we're speaking about parenting and how just the number that it does to you. I hate that we have to say, no, I love my child. But, because it's okay to be like, you can say at work, your guys, work is hard. No one's going to say you don't love your job or you don't need to. I hate the fact that as parents, we have to preface it with, no, I love my child, but, but yeah, no, parenting, shame.
Bonga, we were talking about this last night because Bonga will like celebrate having a child-free weekend on social media.
Yeah.
And I'm like, aren't you like scared that people are going to be like, oh, this one is not a good parent or doesn't want to be a parent or whatever. And she was
Yeah.
like, no, I give myself time to rest because when I come back with a bang. I'm a good parent.
Yes.
Because I prioritize myself. And so I love that. And for me, I feel like this, even with marriage, married people often aren't honest, especially on public platforms. Be like, hey, I can see a guy. Because I see it because I know that if I were to, I'm not saying you, friend, but I know that if I were to ask any married friend of mine on a platform like this, they would be like, oh, no,
I understand.
However, I know when I'm sitting with them over lunch, it's not the same story.
I understand
You know what I mean?
exactly
So
what
there's
you
a certain
mean.
honesty that sometimes even like married people are like,
And what is the obsession with everything being perfect, guys? It's okay to say marriage has phases. Like every single thing. There are days you
There are
wake up
days
and
that I
hate your
love
job.
it.
There are
Yes.
days you wake up and your partner's not your favorite person. That's why we have that whole thing at 80-20. Sometimes the person has to be the 20 in the relationship. Sometimes the 80, So frank conversations are really
And I also
important.
love being exposed to different ways of thinking via series, book, whatever. Because being Mary Jane, towards one of the last seasons, she meets a guy who's like cool, a little bit of an older guy, never been married, no kids, I think. And now when she really gets to understand why, because she wants to get, this is the whole series about how she wants to get married. Well, not really the whole series, but it's one of the highlighting themes. And she meets this guy she's like, hi man, you gotta get ready, what I've been looking for. And then he's like, oh, I don't want to get married. She's like, no, why would you do that? Because I want to have a child. So he's like, oh, so have a child. So she's like, what should I do? He's like, I don't know. How do people have babies? Like, inseminate. Like, the word is, how do people have babies? Like, the way he says it, like, very like, what does this have to do with me? I don't want to be a parent. We love each other. We're in a... And then she's like, how will the living arrangement work? He's like, you'll have your place and I'll have my place. We'll do exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And you'll have your child. And you can see how he's frustrated at explaining this theory because he can see the abrasiveness that comes with sharing it. But it was just an exposure to say that you can really allow yourself to think out of the box. What is the setup that would actually work for you? Do people ever allow themselves to be like, there was this other girl who was like, I want to get married, but I definitely want to still have my own room. I actually want to have my own bedroom. But like, hey, that's not allowed. You say that out loud, it's not allowed. And when guests come over, you need to lock that room and you're not allowed to say who, mommy was in her room. Like, pull away now. How dare you say, you know what I mean? Because it's almost like there's these certain boxes and stories that so I love it when like you come across a series like that or a book like that where they're like, allow yourself to think out of the box and redesign what this marriage thing could look like for you, or what partnership could look like for you, and companionship could look like for you. Because perhaps maybe the traditional way, it's just, you know, you want companionship, but I still want to go home to my place. You know, I want to eat this meal and then go back to my place. What about that picture? You know, what room do we make for those people in society?
Sure. One thing I want to say, though, with the question of, you know, when you say you have some of your friends who would say, no, this thing, I don't know what I was doing. I've picked up, I have friends who are in the same situation, but I've picked up on the fact that the reasons as to why they say that are very nuanced. So you may find that it's not marriage that they regret. I know, for example, you find some, they got married, they had kids with this person. The person didn't end up being as supportive when the children came as they anticipated. So they have marriage they do again, but it's certain nuances. You know, one of the things that I'm finding where we're at right now is we're in a place where I'm busy with you guys, busy building TCC. She's busy working on a project that's consuming a lot of her time. So we're not connecting as much as we usually do. And we can feel that, you understand? So for us, it's just a phase. And we had our nanny sick this past week, and it just tested us. It honestly just tested us. So in that, I'm just saying that sometimes if you ever hear a person say, marriage, sit down, have a conversation with them, and find out what's the nuance. And I don't know if you've seen that in amongst your circle as well. Yeah.
And it becomes a cop-out to quickly blame your partner. I like what you're doing, because it becomes like, hey, you're the wrong person. When that isn't the truth, you just are failing to address this. You're busy with the project, I'm busy with this. You feel neglected by me, I feel neglected by you. You know, and let's deal with there was this other, I mean, I should be a marriage counselor at this point.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
There was this other old lady who said, me and my husband never fought each other, we fought the issue. And I also never forget it. She's like, we never fought. It was never you did this. This is how I feel. And it's caused by these factors. And how can we fix it? So I feel neglected.
Powerful.
You're busy with your master's degree.
Well,
I also feel neglected. You're busy with whatever. This new business you're starting. So how can we work around us feeling neglected? I shouldn't have married her. You know?
Yeah, and it comes back to this thing that had confused me for the longest of time, where you have these couple goals, right? And where you have these people who say that God showed me that this is my partner. Jiggy jiggy, you are divorced. It's like how if God showed you that this is the one, then why?
And God's word never.
And God us is like, nah. Nah. Marriage is not the problem. God's guidance is not the problem. They're humans that were in this union. Let's deal with the humans and what issues the humans had. It's not a God issue. It's not a marriage issue. It's you two in this. That needs to be looked at.
Yes, and also just, you know, going back to that whole idolizing somebody so that your views are backed up. I'll make another example around, remember Megan and...
I was thinking of them. I did not want to mention their names.
You know, and I don't mean to say it in a negative way. They were doing a beautiful thing. What was it? What the book was called? The Weight.
Yes, something like that.
The Weight. So it was
but it was soon after they got married.
Give me Megan Goodley. Megan Goodley pastor.
And what was the pastor's name?
I forgot.
And, you know, once again, just to show human, like, not that what was written in the book was bad. Not that, you know, but it's humans. But now when you put these specific people on some pedestal, you know, and isn't there a verse that says, do as they say, not as they do?
I think it's more an
it's a verse on the streets.
It's
a verse on the
that one is
streets.
in second opinions.
Second
opinion.
Bible according to society.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, just parting shots. Somebody's watching.
I've got one last question. What does it look like when you, like, you know, when I was talking about the friend of mine who has a sister who travels by herself? What do those what we would call couple goals? What do those look like for you? So I'm asking in a sense of when you envision yourself traveling. Is it just you? Is it you and friends? When you envision yourself building and living in your dream house, is it just you or is it you with friends surrounding you? What does that look like?
It's going to be so selfish. It's just me. I travel alone. I go to lodges alone. I take myself out. I go to movies alone.
We need to normalize
theater
this.
spaces. I travel, like, I really go alone. Like, right now, I'm planning on going to the Caribbean, and I'm planning by myself. So I don't see, and people are like, but you're going to be bored. You need a companion.
No.
I'm like, that would be great. But right now, I solo stuff, solo location, solo dates. So I'm not there yet of picturing even a house, right? I bought my first property, and I wanted it to be by myself for the longest of time. And you know, the whole thing of you're going to intimidate a man. Listen, this world is so big.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there will be a man out there who'd be like, I want this woman, you know, who has her own thing. And since I've traveled, I've seen that there are men who are very accommodating of women like me,
Yep.
you know. So my house, I have a dream house. Right now, I'm seeing it with just me. When the time is right, maybe, you know, we can figure out with the husband whether he is moving in with me. If he's got something better than me, then we go to him, or we just have something for ourselves. But my dream, everything is me right now by myself.
Okay, I see. I'm just gonna say this. I actually do believe, and I know it's not an orthodox concept, but I think you can make a marriage work with people living in two separate houses.
I think so
If
too.
if they know genuinely that we are in a marriage and we're actually making it work, I think there's a way you can make that work. But of course, it's very unorthodox right
Sarah
now.
Jessica Parker and Big, remember, always keep Sarah Jessica Parker's flat, and she goes to go writing sabbaticals, and then he goes when he needs, and they just have once again rewriting the story of what marriage looks like to us. Can I just say Matthew 23 verse 3? So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach.
Okay, so
I
it's
knew
there.
it was a Bible. I knew it. Actually, I knew it.
My parting shot is also in the book of Matthew.
Yeah.
I must actually find the exact one. Circumstances under which people do not get married. And I'm very, very, very much paraphrasing. Pastors and Bazalani Askisne. Some people were never asked. Some people were asked and they turned down the offers. Other people saw what marriage entailed and they were like, this is not for me. O morwalo o tlo mpalla, so I will leave it. Other people, it's because they knew that their job was for the ministry, like your nuns and all of them, and they were like, I'm tied to the ministry. Wasn't it Paul who was like, please do not get married, rather stay in the church, kind of thing,
it was,
you know?
yes,
You know, so those kind of people, they are there. And then I forgot the fifth one. But this is scriptural. Just know that there are people who have their reasons, and you don't, some people may need affirmation from other people. Some of us, it's scripture. So it's like they're in the Bible. Yeah, that's my parting shot.
I love it.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for having a poem. It's the first time we had like a little art piece on the show. So that's a first for us. You brought that for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for, you know, just sharing nuggets of wisdom with us. Today's episode, it was the conversation capital. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share your story with us, share your phases with us, share your gray area, your white area, your black area. We would love to hear it all, and share, you know, your idea of like a reconstructed marriage that goes against societal norms. What does it look like for you? We're so excited to hear from you. For now though, goodbye and God bless.